Now that the housing market is changing, what should you do? I want to walk you through some advice from a Sacramento appraiser, and this is on the Sacramento Appraisal blog by Ryan Lundquist, which is a fantastic blog that you should check out and subscribe to. He has really great insights about specifically the Sacramento market, but it does apply to a lot of markets across the US. And what I think a lot of homebuyers are facing right now is they're recognizing that the market has shifted. That's not super big news to most people. But what's difficult is some of the advice that was given when the market was really a heavy seller's market isn't as applicable as things start to shift into a little bit more of where we're at now, which isn't quite a buyer's market, and isn't quite out of a seller's market. We're more moving into a little bit some more neutral territory in different markets. And of course, there are some markets that are hotter than others. So he walks through some advice here that I think would be really helpful if you are looking to buy a home soon, or maybe you're looking at buying in a few months from now and want to get a better gauge on what this market is like. Okay, so I'll have the link to this down here in the description. This article is geared towards advice for buyers, and then near the bottom it also has advice for sellers as well if you want to check those out. Just want to talk about the buyer's advice at the moment. So first he brings up, don't lowball like it's 2008. It's not a name your price market, so you still have to make reasonable offers instead of way below market value. I find some buyers think it's 2008, and that's not the vibe right now. For instance, a property was priced well at $450,000 and a buyer offered $320,000 and it closed at $455,000, $5,000 above asking price. So if you get lucky at a low level, great. I'm just saying being reasonable rather than lowballing is likely a better strategy. And really, I think this sentiment really applies. It's not just realtors pushing the narrative of like, hey, you should buy to make some commission. Maybe some realtors are like that. Actually, there's probably a good amount of realtors that are like that. But it's often this thing where it's, if you want to buy a home and you see a home that you like, it's okay to pay money to get the house, right? I know everybody wants a deal on a home. I totally get it. I absolutely understand not wanting to overpay for a home and get yourself in a bad financial situation, but that is completely different than paying a fair market value for a home. So just keep that in mind. It's amazing the amount of times I've talked with buyers and they say, I love this house so much, and then they go and lowball it, right? Make your offer actually back up how you feel about the home that you're looking to buy. Or another example, I was talking with my aunt the other day, who is also a real estate agent, which happens that seems like everybody in my family is becoming a real estate agent at this point. She was talking about how she was working with a buyer who really wanted this house. They were like, this is our dream house. We really want to move in here. And through putting in offers, and they had this little back and forth, this kind of like little tiff about these little tiny things. Like one of them was if someone was going to move the washer and dryer, like things that can definitely be done after you buy the home. And they got to the point where they were like, well, if they're going to be that way, then we don't want to buy it. Then we're not going to buy it from them. You just said this was like your ideal home, but you're not going to buy it because you got a little annoyed with the seller. That shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So ultimately, this market is completely different than in 2008. In 2008, we had an incredibly unsafe credit system where mortgages were given out kind of a little bit like candy, and they're really not like that anymore. This is a vastly different market than 2008. And so although I do think that the market is shifting in your favor where you can begin having more aggressive offers in your favor, like lower prices or better terms for you, don't just come in and super lowball it and then be upset that you didn't get the house. If you are going to lowball, that's okay. There's nothing morally wrong with that. You have every right to do that. Just understand that the market isn't really conducive to you just being able to throw out whatever price you want and being able to get it. He also says, be patient. Instead of selling in hours or days, properties are spending weeks or longer on the market. This is a real advantage for buyers because what ends up happening to a seller is they're like, oh my gosh, my home isn't selling in 2 hours. What's going on? And they start to realize that they don't have as much control anymore. And that's where you get to come in with a little bit more of an aggressive offer. So he says you can take more time to shop. Yet if you find something perfect, be swift, since properties that check all the boxes are going quickly with multiple bids, right? It's important to keep in mind that even though the market is shifting, it doesn't mean that it's this huge overcorrection on the other side where there's nobody still competing. There's still people, like he mentions, if the home checks all the boxes, if it's the right price, there likely is still going to be multiple offers on it, meaning you're going to be competing against other home buyers. So that's why you don't want to come in and just put, your worst foot forward. Is that even part of the saying? Worst foot? You don't want to come in putting your, not your best foot forward, and then being upset if you don't get the home. Okay. So if you are in that spot, you're like, I want to buy the home that meets most of the things that I want. Be patient, but make your offer align with your intention about the house that you're buying as well. Okay. Also, ask for credits if you can. So he said, we're tending to see more buyers asking for credits to help with closing costs or repairs. So talk with your agent about whether asking for credits is something the market will allow. And this is going to be all in your local market. And remember, this isn't going to work in every price range or situation. So like Sacramento, for instance, a lot more competitive than Dayton, Ohio, where I'm at. And so what happens here is when you put in an offer to buy a home, you can say, hey, I'd like to buy your home for, let's say, $450,000. And I would like a credit back at closing towards my closing costs. So with those, or repairs, for instance. So with those, you can do things like buying down the rate, which he talks about in the next section, or just use it to pay for things like your appraisal, your recording fees, title insurance, homeowners insurance, things like that. Buy down the rate if possible. Talk to your loan officer about what it would take to buy down the mortgage rate. This means you can pay more to get a lower rate, or better yet, if you're in a situation where the seller is going to offer a credit, consider using that credit to buy down the rate. Getting your monthly payment lower can be a massive financial win. And he is absolutely right about this. This is something that I don't think a lot of people really realize as much, but you can use the credit that you get from the seller when you negotiate, if you do get one, to actually buy down your interest rate. And when you talk with a lender, you can say, hey, can you show me options of if I paid points up front to lower the interest rate? Now, something I want you to be careful of is in this market right now, there are a lot of people advertising temporary buy downs, things like 2-1 buy downs. Basically what this does is it only temporarily lowers your rate for the first couple of years. But your mortgage payment is going to go up over time. I personally don't think these are great options because it really is kind of the stereotypical, like get you in with a low rate, but then your rate is going to increase. It's going to, it will go up. It's not like an if, it will, absolutely. I'm not a huge fan of them. I think they can be, they can put buyers in bad financial situations because the expectation is your income will increase. That's really the only reason you would get those temporary buy downs. I'm not a huge fan. However, you can get just a regular buy down where you pay money up front and the lender gives you a lower interest rate over the term of your loan. So for instance, I have here, I built the software called the Loan Clarity Advisor. I think it's awesome. Helps you compare loans side by side. So what I did is I put in a quick scenario to show you 3 different options. Now, I have to put them on 2 different calculators because one is a price reduction. So let me walk you through these scenarios. So let's say we're buying a $400,000 home, or that's what the seller is asking for. Great. So 3 options. Let's say we have $10,000 that we're going to play with. Okay, so what we could do is we can ask the seller for a $10,000 credit. All right. What that would allow us to do is we could look at that. It has to offset our closing costs in the right way. So talk to a loan officer about this. But if we offset our closing costs, instead we could increase our down payment, right? So the seller can't directly pay for our down payment, but if it offsets our closing costs, we can use that additional money to go towards the down payment. Hope that makes sense. Just let me know if I need to clarify. So we can increase the down payment with $10,000 extra. So instead of doing 3% down, we can do 5.5% down. All right, 5% interest rate, 0 points. For the sake of the example, no lender fees here. Option 2, we can buy down the rate. Instead of using that extra $10,000 to increase our down payment, which in reality is offsetting our closing costs, what we can do instead is we can have a 3% down payment, which is available for first-time homebuyers on conventional loans. We can pay $10,000 in points, an upfront cost, and get a 3.99% interest rate. Okay. Now, the mortgage insurance is higher monthly because we have a larger loan size. And our third option here, I'm going to cover this over a little bit, is instead, what if we reduce the price by $10,000, right? So through all these options, the seller is giving us a credit of $10,000. So it's either to offset our closing costs so we can increase our down payment, or we use it to buy down our rate so it gets lower, Or we just say, you know what, just knock $10,000 off the top. These are all things that can be negotiated. So in this instance, 3% down, 390 purchase price, which is why I need to have it on a separate calculator. 5.25% interest rate. Okay, 0 points, 0 fees. Mortgage insurance, about the same as this second option here. Okay, and just a quick side note, you can get this calculator. It's down in the description if you want to use it for your situation. So what we would do is scroll down here, and I want to take a look at what the total cost is. What I want to look at is, let's just look at a 10-year average. That's the average time somebody is in a home. So what we want to consider is all the costs of financing to see which one of these is a better loan option for us. So that's the way we actually figure out these numbers. It's not just the interest. We need to look at mortgage insurance, interest, and any points included as well. So when we look at this over 10 years, the increased down payment has a total financing cost of $190,000 over 10 years. Buying down the rate is a $172,000, so $17,000 cheaper. And then the reducing price option is $208,000. So the better option here is if we choose to get a credit to buy down the interest rate, it allows us to save about $17,000 over increasing the down payment, and about $25,000 over reducing the price. Same thing with the monthly payment here. It'd be about $180 cheaper per month when we buy down the rate, and the monthly payment here is $27.40 on reducing the price. Okay, so that definitely is an option to buy down the rate if you'd like. Then he also says target overpriced listings. Overpriced homes represent opportunities for buyers, so go after them. Of course, some sellers are stubborn about accepting offers below their unrealistic list price. Okay, so in here, one of the best ways to do this is talking with your real estate agent and asking them, hey, can you help me spot some of these properties? A really good way to identify these is going to be through looking at how long the home has been listed, the average days on market. Right now, from a national perspective, the median days on market is sitting in July about 35 days. And you can see this has a kind of cyclical nature to it. So talk to your agent about what's average for you in your specific market. That can help you spot some of these properties where you might see some of those sellers who are still feeling like the market is what it was maybe 6 months to a year ago, and they're feeling really confident about being able to list maybe over what it's worth, and you can come in. That's an opportunity to look at that. Also, don't overpay. On one hand, it's unwise to lowball as a strategy, but still try to get the price lower if possible. Local stats show even when properties get multiple offers today, they aren't tending to get bid up to the crazy levels we saw last year. Generally speaking, you probably don't need an offer as aggressively high as you might have 2 quarters ago. In Sacramento, last month, we saw buyers on average pay about 2% below the original list price, which comes out to $12,000. This is the average though, so it would be a colossal mistake to automatically offer $12,000 below whatever the asking price is. Remember, there are many examples of offers still going above the list price, so don't impose an average on every escrow. So basically, this is a really good reminder to understand real estate is all about these local neighborhoods, and the averages might come down to 2% below the list price, but different markets are going to be different. This is where a real estate agent can help you look at what's happening in different local markets. And when you're looking at, should I offer for a home, a real estate agent is going to be really helpful in helping you understand how to look at comparable homes and what those homes sold for maybe within the past few months, past 6 months, past year, and looking at what is going to be a fair price for the home that you're looking to purchase. Okay, also realize there's still competition. About 37% of homes last month in the Sacramento region sold above the original list price. So not everything is selling below like some are talking about. Remember, selling above or below the list price isn't just about the market. It's about how the property was priced, right? Because a seller can come in with a certain list price kind of as a strategy to entice buyers to come in, right? This happened. I made a video about a home where it was like swarmed by home buyers. And there was a video of somebody showing just, I can't even tell you, it was at least 50 buyers just kind of sitting in line waiting to see the property. And if you look at why was this home so attractive, why was this one home gathering so much attention, it was because in the height of a seller's market, those sellers came in and listed for a super low price. And so you have all these buyers saying, oh my gosh, we have got to go see that home and write an offer. And then when you get this huge influx of competition, it's going to sell above because all those people are competing and they see all the competition. And so it's not always a good indication of, if a home is being fairly priced or not, just based on the list price. The list price is more about the strategy of the seller trying to get buyers interested in the home rather than what the fair price of the home is. All right. And finally, don't string sellers along. An agent friend told me about a situation where the buyer was in contract for 40 days and then backed out. Look, it happens and buyers should back out as needed. So I'm not saying to stay, do what you need to do. All I'm saying is if you're on the fence, find a way to be decisive so you can give the seller more space to find another buyer. In a market with quick change, idling buyers can cost the seller money. Now, I know a lot of buyers aren't in a super empathetic position at the moment. Totally get it. But usually in the long run, and as you're in the home shopping world for maybe, hopefully not super long, but a lot of people have been in that home shopping phase for quite a bit of time. It's usually better if we try to do it with as much, trying to think of the right word. I don't know if ethics is the right word, but, treating people like we would want to be treated. And ultimately, you can still get a great deal and negotiate well while being considerate of somebody else. You don't have to, I think sometimes people feel like real estate's a zero-sum game where like the only way to feel good about the home that you bought is to make sure that somebody else got screwed over. And it's like, well, if I'm not taking advantage of somebody, if I'm not screwing somebody over, if I don't feel like they got the short end of the stick, then it wasn't a good deal for me. When real negotiations are actually about two parties getting pretty close to what they want. Usually a good negotiation involves compromise on both sides and both people being pretty content walking away with the deal that they had. Your deal does not have to include somebody getting the short end of the stick to feel better about where you're going. So ultimately here, this is really great news for buyers. Also, I love that there's all these nice memes in here. Great news for buyers. You're getting more options, more leverage. Just keep in mind that things haven't completely flipped the other direction. Keep in mind why you want to buy. And if you're in that spot where you're like, I really want this home, make your offer reflect your intention with the home. If you don't really care about it that much and you're like, you know what, it's moving right now it's more of a want than a need, great. Your offer can reflect that. But if you're saying, I really need a home, I really want this home, this is perfect for us, and your offer doesn't reflect your intention, you can't get upset that you didn't get the house. So just keep that in mind. You're getting more leverage to be able to put in better, other types of loans, not just conventional, not just cash, things like FHA, VA, USDA, and more favorable terms where you don't have to waive inspections and waive appraisal contingencies just to be able to have a seller entertain your offer. Okay. If you need help with a mortgage, I'd be happy to connect you with somebody on my team. We can work in all of the US. Link is in the description, or you can go to winthehouseyoulove.com/lender. And if you're looking for the next step, if you're like, I don't even know where to begin with buying a home because all the steps can be long and confusing and convoluted, go ahead and watch this video over here. I walk through how to buy a home step by step, beginning to end.